Welcome to the Idaho Business Podcast, where we talk with local entrepreneurs, share motivation, network with one another, and pick up a tip or two on how not to burn your business to the ground. I'm your host, Spencer Ward. Welcome back to another episode. We are always sponsored by Health West. Great organization, great people. Google them where they're closest to you throughout Idaho and give them a try with your family. Great medical group there. We're also sponsored by my company, New Clean Commercial Cleaning. If you need any janitorial needs from Twin Falls all the way over to Rexburg, we're your people. Give us a holler at 208-254-7070. If you tell us you heard about us on the podcast, there'll be something free for you, no strings attached. All right. Well, today I've got Shad Harris, personal friend of mine and cybersecurity consultant. I told you in the past that we're going to have someone on to talk about this, about small business, and I am fulfilling that promise by having Shad on today. So Shad is, he's had what, 20 something years or more?
Yeah. Basically right out of high school, I started in the consulting business. Yeah.
Cybersecurity consulting. He's been in locations, some high security locations for the government. You can't say it or they'll have to kill us. Or he's also been like headquarters of Facebook, Nissan, other cool places. So his profession has taken him everywhere. So Shad, welcome to the show again. You were here a few years ago, but we weren't really talking cybersecurity at that point. So
right. No, it's huge. And right now I think we're in a really interesting time just in general, right? Like everybody knows about AI and how helpful it can be and how pervasive it's being, but in the cybersecurity world, it's absolutely it's changing the models. It's changing the game so much that, even people that have been in the industry for 30, 40 years are saying this feels exactly like the .com era, right? The early 2000s when things were kicking off. It's a whole new frontier, to steal that term from AI. That we've never experienced the growth like this. You're seeing $1 trillion companies pop up in 2 years, right? So it's just unbelievable activity. And my whole role has changed so dramatically in the last, I want to say for the company I work with now, Extra Hop, we had our sales kickoff in late January. Since then, even my role has changed so dramatically that I'm doing almost nothing of the stuff I did last year, right? My whole role has changed. It's been incredible.
Interesting.
Yeah. And and I would say it's mostly for the best, right? There's some stuff that goes on. And when you asked me to come on, I was really curious because it's how a lot of the companies I deal with are big, right? The federal governments. I was in a talk yesterday with the largest financial bank out of Japan. Which was kind of neat because we actually had people in 4 different continents on the phone at the same time. It was kind of wow, that's got to be rare, right? So that was kind of neat. But no, the problem now is it's so easy to use AI for AI assisted malware or AI assisted espionage, and these models just keep getting so good, and then the open source ones catch up 6 or 7 months later. That we're seeing this insane surge of, there's a program. This is a good example. So there's a program called bug bounties, where if you find a problem with an application, whether it's Google or Facebook or wherever, you find some vulnerability or some issue, you can submit it to these groups that do bug bounties. And normally it's a company that owns it, but sometimes they third party it. And they'll give you a reward for finding it, right? It's here's $10,000. It's a meaningful amount of money. Well, they're so overwhelmed because AI is so good at finding these bugs and these compromises that they had to basically stop the whole program because they would get more submissions in 1 month than they got the entire history of the program before. Because there was a service called Mythos from Anthropic that was released, and its sole focus is cybersecurity. It was so good, it found a vulnerability in a server that was 35 years old, and it had been hit and repeatedly evaluated by humans. Nothing found. 35 years later, there's a vulnerability. So it's wow. How many systems were running on that? And who knew about it, right? Did
Yeah.
the Chinese government know about it? Did the Russians know about it? So we get into those discussions, and it gets a little scary. But yeah,
Well, that's
so
interesting. Well, that kind of brings us
absolutely.
into the what we're really trying to get at after here with all these business owners out here with
Right.
the advancements in AI that you're just mentioning. When you talk to typical business owners, especially small business owners, what are they
Yeah.
completely underestimating about cybersecurity?
The biggest underestimation is the speed at which it's going to happen now. Is it
Okay.
used to be, you think back to like breaches that you can remember, like the Target breach, right? Back in 2000, I think it was like 15 or 16 comes to mind. They were in that network for like a year. And by they,
Hmm.
I mean, the attackers collecting things, laying low, doing little things, changing little settings here and there, and then they grabbed a bunch of data from their internal servers and pushed it out the door, kind of thing. It took them like a
There's
year to get that out. We're seeing attacks now that are like 10 times the scale of that happening in a matter of seconds. They'll get in,
wow.
they'll transverse laterally, they'll change permissions, all of a sudden they go from a regular user to an admin user, and then they'll start grabbing stuff, whatever they can find, piling up in the middle, and then shoving it out the door or shoving it through a cloud service, right? So
Wow.
it happens so fast that you have to have a tool that responds at the same pace. And that's what's the hardest
Interesting.
part is these big network enterprise solutions that like the stuff that we sell, it can do that, right? But we're talking about, I think our average cost of a unit is like 250,000 bucks, right? Like it's no
Yeah.
joke. And so while we do have smaller solutions, there's a ton of stuff that's available that essentially goes as like a middleman. So
Yeah.
if AI is attacking you, the good news is there's AI models that can be used to defend you. And that's really, I think that's the sweet spot right now is everybody should be paying for like Claude Pro or whatever. The $20 to $100 a month is
Yeah.
well worth it, because what I can do is, let's say you have a firewall and you have maybe like antivirus and you have a standard, whatever threat protection suite. Even if it's the one that's like cooked into, like, for instance, the router that I installed at your offices, um, I can take that AI bot now. I can take my AI model and I can ask it, "Hey, is everything okay on the network right now? Do we see any activity that looks strange?" It'll go through and be your super analyst and look through all the data and be like, "Okay, this is normal. That looks good. Oh, well, that's weird. Like a bunch of data went out the other day. I wonder what that was about." And it can investigate
Mm.
that for you. It's a little tricky to set up. You need someone like myself or someone similar that can help in these matters. But honestly, once it's set up, it's a beautiful thing because you can create an environment where a business that couldn't traditionally afford like a full security operations center because
Hmm.
multiple, thousands of bucks a month. One little AI bot just chugging along, watching for bad stuff, is enough to at least see it and allow you to respond in kind. Say,
Okay.
oh, we like, all of a sudden we have these connections coming in from wherever, right? And it says, is this something that you expect? Should you be logging in from China? And you can say, absolutely not. Let's close that firewall hole, or let's get out of the system, or just unplug your network for the most part. There's a lot of ways to react to that thing, but without somebody watching the gates, you have no idea who's coming and going, and that's
Sure.
that's the biggest threat to small businesses, I
Okay.
think.
So that was
So,
you kind of hit on to my next question.
yeah,
If a small business owner maybe has because obviously we don't have the big budgets like the
yeah,
companies you're dealing with. What if they just have like I've got $5,000 to improve cybersecurity in my business? Where would you spend it?
I
Obviously, the
love,
$20 for Claude a month,
yeah, $20 a month for Claude.
and
I
then
would
what
say
else?
the one thing I think people that doesn't get enough communication, and this comes from my time working at the Conversing Group, which was a remediation and response company. Um, the only way to survive a ransomware attack, the only way is high fidelity backups. And so for
Okay.
5,000 bucks, you could do a really good job of getting a backup solution on prem, right? So in your offices, you back up, locally, and try to keep it as isolated from the network as possible. All you can do to that is send data and make sure you have high quality backups, multiple going back as long as you can afford,
Let
right?
me let me cut you real quick too, right there. So
But,
say a lot of people are using like Google Suites or that Microsoft service, and maybe they don't
yep.
have just the big servers in their offices and stuff. Maybe what and hit upon that as well. So
So yeah, that goes into the second phase.
okay,
So for
okay,
the first phase, though, like even for you or Google Suites or other customers I have that use Google Suites, the workspace, you can bring all that down to your local
okay.
device, right? So there's tools that specifically geared towards backing up Google Workspace or backing up Azure Cloud and making sure you at least have a copy of your running business documents and emails and your contacts and all that stuff, right? A high fidelity copy there. And the good news is about if you are using cloud suites is they're doing a pretty good job of keeping your data safe. Now, do they have backups of your data? Absolutely not. And I think that's something that people miss. Unless you're paying for a Google Vault or the equivalent of the Azure Vault, is there is no backup being performed on your data. You're
Hmm.
just spread across 100 different servers, right? So if one goes down, they can rebuild the data. Your data is pretty safe, but there is no real backup. So if you get compromised in the cloud, that it's just compromised, right? You
Hmm.
can roll back versions to a certain extent, but if they do lay low and take their time, you can run out of leg room, and all of a sudden the only version you have of that file, that email, is the bad version. So you don't want that. So for $5,000, that gets you, I mean, dozens and dozens of backups,
Okay.
copies that are iterative, right? So you can go back and find a file that's a year old sometimes.
Sweet.
And that's really it. So from, I would say most businesses, if they're not, I guess there's two things. If they're making a bunch of noise, like all of a sudden they're viral or they're super duper popular or they're blowing up, right? Like they have some product that people are just clamoring to, they're probably not going to get attacked for their intellectual property. They're
Hmm.
probably going to get attacked for money. All right. They're going to get held ransom. And AI is assisting in that now, too, which is a flipping nightmare. And so it's happening really quickly. It's hard to respond to it. And then once it happens, if you don't have high fidelity backups, there's really not a ton you can do. Like going back to the Caesars incident and the MGM breach, the only way they got
Yeah.
out of that because they had big time backups, and it was actually kind of lucky on their part. But yeah, so I would say focus on a really high fidelity backup system, and then you get a nice business centric router system like the one you have. Like the Unify solution is incredible because it has all the tools and features of a big enterprise solution at a very affordable price, right? Like what was it, $350 or something like
Yeah,
that?
I think so. Yeah.
um, Super reasonable, super effective, and very well built. So get yourself one of those, get it installed, and just have it protecting the gates at least at the basic level, right? So I would
Okay.
say Claude, backups, and a decent firewall.
Okay.
Pretty much it.
Okay. Perfect. Have you?
Yeah.
I'm guessing some small businesses will probably come across something like, "Hey, what about someone's emails accounting pretending to be maybe me, and says, 'Hey,
Yeah.
wire 75,000 to this account.' How do we prevent something like that?"
Gosh, it's the most frustrating thing. The good news is, and I think I see this a lot. And so there's a way now, which is great, called authenticated email, where essentially no one can just pretend to be you, right, and send it to another team. So if someone was to send from Nuclear, and I set this up for you last year, is if someone was to say, "Oh, I'm Spencer at newclean.com and I'm sending an email," if it doesn't match the records that are coming out of your Google Work Suite, the other team won't even receive it. It won't even make it to them.
Mm,
So that
okay.
eliminated a ton of spam. It's just that erroneous where they claim to be you and send it anyway.
Okay.
The next step is the lookalikes and the copycats and the misspellers, right? Like maybe they misspelled Nuclean or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And you get those. Those are tough because there's really no way to catch it because you're not involved in the whole process.
Hmm.
But the good news is I am seeing a lot of other people are seeing these emails come in and they're more aware than they ever have been. Like we get emails on a couple of my different clients the other day, and he's like, "Hey, this definitely didn't come from you, right?" And they sent it to, the director of that program and or of that company. And she's like, no, absolutely not. I would never do that. But it was just a request saying, hey, we switched payment systems. So from here on out, mail your check to this place instead of that place. And I was like, dude, come on.
Unreal.
So those are hard. So awareness is the best, is just looking at who the email's from. Don't open any attachments without knowing who it's from. And then making sure that no one's able to send as you, right? So go ahead and do that authenticated email. And if you're using a work solution like Google Workspace or whatever, it's all cooked into the back end. You just have to have someone turn it on. There's a little bit of a process, but for the most part, it's about, I don't know, 1 to 2 hours to turn that on. So pretty reasonable.
So creating a backup, a redundancy there helps a ton. Is that pretty much your insurance policy when it comes to cyber insurance?
Yeah, and even that you can do multiple. So I'll host people's backups at my house occasionally. So I have a couple running right now that they back up at their site, and then just to avoid things like fires and floods and earthquakes and whatever, bombs, I guess. But I'll back it up at my house as well, right? So that redundancy is nice. You want geographic redundancy, and then you want digital redundancy. So in the cloud and local.
Okay, that's good to hear that.
That'll chew up the better part of $5,000 in a couple of years for sure.
Okay. Well, how often should employees receive maybe some cybersecurity training? Because I think not everyone knows that. Like, something from Spencer looks like it, but they didn't check to see if new clean is spilled right or whatever. So,
no, it's one of those things that when I was working at the lab, we would do it. It was like monthly. We'd have a newsletter. Here's the updated techniques. So we call them TTPs, tactics, techniques, and protocols. And those are like, this is what the hackers are doing now, right? This is what the new phishing emails look like. Be aware. I think that's incredibly effective to send out monthly. Just have them be aware of things, because it's not so much anymore where you have like the broken English and the insane, salutations, Mr. Ward, like who talks like that?
Yeah.
Now you have an AI that's cooler than me or cooler than everybody that just can create like a casual conversation. And so it's no longer looks like some insane person that thinks they know English but they learned it in India, trying to talk to you. So the emails are getting more convincing. The graphics are getting better. They're getting better because AI is better. And so I would say if you could do it quarterly and just roll it up. It doesn't have to be a big thing, 30 minutes, right? Like, and it's something like someone like myself, or even just, there's tons of newsletters, there's tons of YouTube videos that are giving people the heads up. Like, even if you just make it mandatory to watch this and just pay attention, right? And and then if somebody has questions like, oh, I'm in my Gmail, how do I tell who it's from? Right? I don't know where that little drop down is or whatever. Just showing them one time should be enough. And, just make sure you go through a step of verification before you open any attachments.
Very good. Well, let's kind of come to before we come to a close, let's kind of get into this a little bit. We've talked about, what if something happens, let's just say, hey, it's Monday morning, an employee tells me something isn't right. What are the first steps I do at that point?
So, depending on what it is. So let's just do a scenario for one of the local customers I work for here. If they were to come in Monday morning and their system had, a ransom on it, right, or whatever. Now we've taken quite a bit of precautions to have a really nice endpoint solution on that box. There's firewalls they had to get through, and then I also have some network detection and response running on that network. So what I would probably have them do, and this is just because I don't have a way of isolating that device off the network, I would probably have them just hard power off, right?
Okay.
Like let's try to stop the bleeding. And then in the back of my mind, what I'd be thinking as the administrator is, what other systems does that person's username have access to? What other servers, other file shares, other resources across the network that user uses on a daily basis, right? Whether it's a printer or anything. And then I need to start seeing if those systems are acting up or showing any signs. So I would run through and kick off a scan on the server that they leverage, or I'd look into the folder and see if there's any additional stuff created from that user for that given, last 48 hours or whatever it is. And just so then you go into containment, right? You get that system off the network, whether it's unplugging it from the network or not. You contain the blast radius, is what we call it, is how far that username started proliferating, badness. And then you work your way back towards a central point.
Okay.
Once that's corrected, then if that system has malware on it, you see if you have a reliable backup from before the malware was downloaded, right? By leveraging your network logs to see when
Mm-hmm.
that system was compromised. And then you just roll back your update, and then you update your endpoint solution and hope that you were able to catch it, right? And so then the next part. So once you get containment, blast radius containment, isolation, and then repair. And then the next step is, now I know what it looks like because I have all these network logs. If you have those network logs, now I watch for it to pop up again, right? Because I need to make sure it's done. And that's the next step, is ensuring you clean the mess.
Okay.
And that's a really simplified way of approaching that. There's 100 ways to go about that. But that's, in general terms, that's kind of, you focus, expand, make sure there's nothing else to worry about. And then for each unit you have to contain, you have to go back and roll back whatever
Okay.
they managed to do.
On the blast radius that you mentioned, would one of the steps be, hey, do we get a hold of our current financial institutions because maybe they hacked and they know our saved passwords and stuff into our banking?
Yeah, I mean, it surely wouldn't hurt, especially, it depends on that person's role, right? Like,
Okay.
if they're a receptionist or whatever, and they don't have any financial information on their computer, probably not. But if it's your director or someone who does the accounts receivables or whatever, yeah, it wouldn't hurt to use a different machine, obviously, log
Okay.
in and your passwords, make sure you have two-factor authentication. A lot of times, two-factor authentication will save 99%
Okay.
of that kind of stuff, because it's really difficult. You have to have a really focused attempt to bypass or compromise two-factor authentication. And if you're just a local business here, it's probably not worth going through the trouble of all that. And typically it requires a help desk or some social engineering as well, so they would know
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then does law enforcement need to be informed at all, or how's that all work?
I would love for them to be more involved, I guess, because um, but honestly, until you can attribute it to a single person or even just an actor, um, the FBI isn't even concerned about it until it's a substantial enough of a problem, right? Like, I think the threshold for alerting the FBI or getting them involved is like well over $1 million at this point.
Wow.
So there is cybersecurity insurance that small businesses can buy as well. That's decently affordable until you have an incident, and then it's completely and wildly unaffordable.
Sure. You're paying by the hour for all these professionals to work on your stuff.
Yeah, well, and it depends on what the compromise was. Like, it's, your premiums will go up 100,000% if you get hit. Like, especially the big ones where it's 10, 20 million bucks or whatever it is for like larger companies, it'll be to the point where they're uninsurable. So they'll have to go to like Lloyd's of London and underwrite their own cyber insurance policy. But
Wow.
for small businesses, it'll help you with that first one. But then you kind of got to pray for no other ones for a long
Interesting.
time. So
Okay.
it's kind of the worst part of insurance, right?
Oh, it's good to know all this. So
Yeah. And I can provide some links, and you can provide them for your users. And
yeah, do that. We'll put them in our in your description below this episode. So that'd be good.
yeah, yeah, that'd be really cool. And I think, yeah, I have a couple customers that I do local stuff with that are just super paranoid, and it's nice because they take the actions that are necessary, and it's okay to be paranoid. You don't want to let it overwhelm you, obviously, but at the same time, I think one thing I like to leave people with is assume that if you're not compromised yet, you will be shortly, and then kind of base your behavior off of that. Is, how can I prevent a full loss of my business continuity? Because that's ultimately what we're worried about. It's one thing to lose a system, it's one thing to lose a laptop or whatever. It's
Mhm.
another thing to not be able to pay for it. That
Yeah,
sucks. So,
exactly. Okay,
uh,
I like this. Um, well, as we close here, because this has been an important episode. Thank you for coming on and talking to us about this. We always like to roll out the red carpet for our guests. I don't know if you are taking any more clients on as consulting clients, but if you are, if you want
yeah,
to give them an opportunity to give them a contact information for you to,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
want them to reach out.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're at the point now in your business development that you need someone like myself, or you want to just have a consultation about what you should do, what steps you should take. My favorite thing to do for small businesses is work myself out of a job. I don't want to be there every day. I can't be there every day. But I'll come help you, for a month or so, and we'll get you dialed in, get you set up, and then just a little bit of maintenance moving forward. Maybe have me on retainer or something, and just make it to where if something happens, you have somebody to call. And I'm totally cool with that. So yeah, if I could take on another 2 or 3, I'd be okay with that.
Okay. Do you want an email that you want to leave with us? Or
yeah, we just leave my personal, shadharris@gmail.com. We can throw it in the description as well.
Yep.
Well, maybe not that. That's available to everybody. Maybe have them reach out to you and get that contact info. I'd be fine with that.
There you go.
Be my middleman.
Okay. I like it. Well, I appreciate it, Shad. Thanks for coming on. And hopefully you guys are listening today are getting a ton out of what he just had to say. If this is important to you, I'm sure it's important to one of your coworkers or your friends or someone else that owns another business. So share this episode with them.
Absolutely.
And Shad, again, thanks. And
yeah, no problem, man.
As always,
it's a good topic.
Yeah, it is a good one.
Very relevant.
And as always, yeah. And as always, we always, end the episode this way: be happy, be grateful, and find opportunities to serve other people. And have a great week. That's it for today's Idaho Business Podcast. Hopefully you learned something new. And if you didn't, I've got a cheat code for you. Go to theidahobusinesspodcast.com, enter your email, and get my 20 golden rules for business. It's packed with my best advice, plus it's free. Subscribe, leave a review, share this with a friend. Until next time, keep hustling, keep laughing, and keep Idaho awesome.